after general questions, we moved on to project related questions. And there, oh my God, that's where I got asked really, really, biology questions. And I was like, oh, why a PhD? Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. For those who are new, my name is Anait Nakas. I am a Ugandan and I am currently doing my PhD here at the University of Manchester, and my research is about examining changes that are happening in the brain after radiotherapy. In this video, I'm going to be taking you through my experience when I did my PhD interview for this project. Yeah, and I'll be giving you some tips at the end. So I got this interview. I did the interview on the 4th of April. I don't remember the time, but it was, I think, midday or something like that. I logged in. I was the first person to be in the Zoom call. Yeah, make sure you are the one, definitely, because you are the candidate. You should, respect your elders. And I remember there were about 1, 2, 3, 2 guys, 1 lady on the funding panel, because this was a PhD studentship interview. You understand? So we are fighting for that funding with my supervisor. And then there were 2 more ladies. I think those were the ladies who were familiar with the field, so they could ask me so many questions. And then my supervisor was in, and then we had another lady online. Yeah, so those were the people on the panel. I think there were about 5 or 6. I don't remember well. Right now, I only know one person. That's my supervisor. All the other people, I don't remember them. I think I've met them, but I don't remember if they were the people who were on the panel. I don't remember. And their names were not mentioned in the email, so it's easy for me to forget them. Yeah, but I remember those ladies. Yeah. And the first thing I did in this interview was to present. Remember, I had to critique an article. So I took them through my article. I had my summary, my critique, right, on my computer screen, and I was just trying to explain things, or explaining what they had did, bullshit, they had done in their research. Remember, I didn't have any slides. There is another word they used. The slides were not allowed, so I had summarized everything, in a Word document, and I had the paper printed besides me. And I did, yeah, I did the job, and I finished that. And then there is this lady who asked me about the alpha beta value. Well, you don't have to know this, because it's for those people who, are in radiotherapy. But I think they had used a value for we have early and late responding tissues, so they had used an alpha beta value, which was for maybe high responding tissues, yet we're in a brain. I don't remember what the question was about, but it was about the alpha beta value that they had used. And then they asked me a few more questions about the paper, but what I remember is they didn't delay so much on that part. We quickly moved on to other general questions, and the first question they asked me was, why Manchester? I mean, I had prepared, and I remember what I said was mainly the resources, in terms of equipment and the people there, because Manchester is so known for high quality research, and I think it's the best university for social impact. Yeah, as far as I remember. So I had all those things, on top of my head. I didn't even bother telling them that, your university is one of the best universities in the world. Yeah, they know it. Why should I mention it? They know it. So, yeah, and the next question was about mentioning other groups that I knew in Manchester. Definitely, I knew my supervisor's group. I knew Dr. Doug's group. Dr. Douglas Dyer, is my secondary supervisor. So I knew part of his work. I didn't know the lab members definitely, but I knew that he has a group. And then I knew other people, but I noticed that all of these people that I mentioned are stationed at the Christie Hospital. Yeah, and I knew those people because I attended so many flash radiotherapy, not conferences, but meetings, because I'm so, attracted to flash radiotherapy. So I used to attend all of their mini conferences. So I knew all these groups that were doing flash from Manchester. So I mentioned all those people. And I think one of the guys on the funding body was maybe Dr. Marcel. Dr. Marcel is a physicist who has really a long beard and he works at the Christie Hospital. So I think that's the guy. So when I mentioned these people, you could easily know. After general questions, we moved on to project related questions. And there, oh my God, that's where I got asked really, really, biology questions. And I was like, oh, now you've got my brain to think. I remember they asked me about some of the mechanisms or the assumed or suspected. My English doesn't English sometimes, but I hope you understand what I'm talking about. Huh? Yeah, so they were trying to ask me about some of the biological mechanisms behind the events that we mentioned in the project title. My supervisor mentioned in the project title, So yeah, they asked me questions about my project, but I don't want to tell you those questions for no reason. I don't feel like I should tell you. Maybe one time in the future. Yeah, and I tried to explain to them. My supervisor had sent me 2 articles that were closely related to my project. So I read those articles, and all the questions they asked were, kind of linked to the information in those articles. So those articles really helped me, to understand more about the area and a bit of the mechanisms behind the project. From there, they asked me about why a PhD? Why do I want to do a PhD? Yeah, and I think that's something that you should be careful of, because if you just say, oh, I want to do research, well, instead of doing a PhD, you can go and get a research assistant job instead of a PhD. So I think it's important for you to understand the difference, between a PhD and a research assistant job, because you can be doing research, but this is a structured program, with a specified timeline, goals, and all those things. So and the training you get when you're doing your PhD is different from the training you can have access to if you're a research assistant, and your life goals. So try to plan your answers. Oh, of course, you don't have to cram them, but try to plan some of the answers. And from there, they asked me my future my future goals after my PhD, what I want to do. And definitely, like I told you guys, I think the only thing I can do is research. A few years back, maybe 1 year ago, I was just, oh, I would be a cool pilot, but no, I think I'm fine in research. Yeah, so I definitely mentioned that I want to be a researcher. I want to spend so much time doing this and this and that. And then there is a lady who asked me, how are you gonna prepare yourself for your next step of life after your PhD? And I remember just telling her that that would depend on the discussions that I will have between my supervisor, because I rely so much on my supervisor. I remember mentioning that and trying to learn, the what is it called, the career path that I want to take and what it requires, so that I can learn those things. Sorry, so that I can learn those things while doing my PhD. But I insisted that I will discuss most of the things with my supervisor, because he knows so much more than I do. Yeah, those were the major questions that I remember. Of course, there are other questions, but I probably don't remember them. Yeah, and from my experience, these are the things that you can do to perform, good at your interview. Number one, prepare. Learn more about the project. Yeah, learn more about your project and, ask your supervisor if there are some articles you can read before the interview, because the articles my supervisor sent me were really helpful. So try to talk to your supervisor. And when you're preparing, ask if you can, practice with him, because he can easily help you better prepare for the interview and better interpret the data in any research article um, he has sent, because he's the one who sends the article for you to present, right? Yeah. And then try to learn more about the university, what they are known for, and the things they have that are helpful to your research and to your career, because not everything at the university is really helpful. So choose things that that they are known for and they're really good for your own benefit. And then learn more about other research groups, maybe in the department, and how you can maybe collaborate, possibilities of collaborating with them in the future. And then practice as many times as you can. I don't know how many times I can tell you, but I practice more than 10 times for that 5-minute presentation. It was just 5 minutes, no slides, no nothing. Presenting an article of about 14 pages. I practiced a lot. What else can I say? Have an understanding of what a PhD is and have a plan of how your life might be in the next 5 years after your PhD, the next 10 years after your PhD, and what are some of the things you think you need to achieve all the things you want to achieve 5 years after your PhD, and what are some of the things you want to achieve during your PhD. So I think you should know those things, and any other things you think are important. That's what I can say. Don't forget to follow me on my PhD journey. Yeah. I'll be telling you everything about my PhD and yeah, some cool experiences. Don't forget to follow my crazy journey. Don't forget to share this video, because there are so many candidates who have never done a PhD interviews and they got shortlisted. So share it. Yeah.